you doing, wrestling fans? And welcome to another edition of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Podcast, the only wrestling podcast that brings you back 30 years with vintage audio, featuring some of the biggest names of that time in the pro wrestling business. This episode is no exception. We got some good ones for you today, and we'll go over that in just a couple of minutes here. Today, we're going to review both the Pro Wrestling This Week and Pro Wrestling Spotlight shows. The Pro Wrestling This Week show aired on 1440 AM WNYG in Babylon, New York. And the nighttime Pro Wrestling Spotlight show aired on WEVD. So we'll have vintage clips from both of those broadcasts from March 27th, 1993. I do want to remind everybody, if you haven't checked it out yet, and there's even more of a reason now to join our patreon.com/John Arezzi to get all the vintage unedited shows in the archives of the history of this program. And we will go over that in a little bit. But that is the place to go for the archives, for classic video, audio, appearances here on the podcast, Zoom calls. I mean, there's just so much that we offer. Patreon.com/John Arezzi, $5 a month gets you in the door. And there are other levels based on how deep you want to get into those archives and what other perks you want to get. So go to patreon.com/John Arezzi. Also, if you're in the market for some collectibles, whether they're vintage wrestling, AAA wrestling, Beatles, Mets, concert photos I shot in the 70s, they're up there on eBay. The eBay page store is doing really well. So go to ebay.com, look for Matt Memories, and I'm sure there could be some stuff that you might be interested in. I want to also make note of 80s Wrestling Con taking place at the Men in Sports Arena in Morristown, New Jersey. That's on Saturday, May the 6th. Doors open at 11 a.m. Happy to say that I'll be there with a table, signing Matt Memories, my book. I'll have posters, some T-shirts, some vintage wrestling items. But Tommy Fierro, who was on this show in our last episode, he's got a great lineup. Bret the Hitman Hart, Dory Funk Jr., Wendy Richter, Powers of Pain, Dr. D. David Schultz, Demolition, Killer Bees, Tony Atlas, so many stars from the 80s. I could go on and on and on. It's probably the biggest convention he's ever promoted, and there will be a show that night as well. That, once again, May the 6th on a Saturday at the Men in Sports Arena in Morristown, New Jersey. Okay, go to 80swrestlingcon.com for more information there. And I'd like to bring Marsh on for this particular show. But Marsh,
hey,
how are you?
Doing good. Excited.
Long time no see. I saw you yesterday.
Yeah, it's like I just don't see you at all anymore.
Yeah, we did something really cool yesterday, and that is going to be a show that actually airs in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I talked to everyone about reacquainting myself after so many years with Al Schaefer, also known as Broadway Sonny Blaze. And yesterday we did a special with Broadway Sonny Blaze, and it was one of the most fun experiences I've had doing this podcast. It was fun. It was great.
It was the parts of this show that I think are the most unique and most fun is when we can get somebody to listen back 30 years after the fact and not be prepared for it and see their genuine reaction. Like I said before, when my buddies who are musicians get together, I like to find the old demos they had and play them with them. And it's just so fun to like reminisce that way. And it was all of that energy. It was so cool.
And Sonny's appearances, that really dated back almost 34 years ago.
Yeah, actually more.
Which is crazy. But we finally got the answer of who Jack the Giant Stalker was. People who have listened to this show over the years. That was one of the classic segments on Pro Wrestling Spotlight and its history. So we finally got the answer who was Jack the Giant Stalker and got that inside information. And we were also able to play other clips with Sonny with the Power Twins, Paulie Dangerously, him calling up from WAD, Wrestlers Against Drugs. It was classic, and he was laughing, and there were some poignant stories, and he went into his wrestling career, and we didn't even get a chance to finish up with everything that I wanted to talk to him about because it went by so quickly. It was a little over 2 hours.
Yeah, it was real close to 2.5, and it was one of those ones where we're kind of just flying by, and all of a sudden I look at the clock tick and I go, oh shoot, I don't know if we're gonna have time for some of this other stuff. Like there was a lot on the table.
Yeah, because we didn't even get a chance to talk about why Bubba Ray Dudley, or Bully Ray, or whatever he calls himself today, hates both myself and Sonny Blaze. He had we were going to get into a pretty in-depth discussion about that. So we're going to bring him back on in a few weeks so we could finish up with Sonny, and then also try to get that reunion schedule with the Power Twins and Bruce Jacobs, and one other person who will be on that reunion show was also on the show yesterday, and that was Mr. Donnie Liable.
Oh, he's amazing. I have such a good time with him.
Yeah.
Again, that energy. That high energy.
He hasn't changed.
It was great watching the three of you guys kind of go back and forth and crack each other up after all this time. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of laughs, and there were even some tears. So I would highly recommend it if anyone listening to this show does not know who Broadway Sonny Blaze is. He was, I would have to say, the first co-host of Pro Wrestling Spotlight back in 1989. Yeah. So the whole backstory, how we met, and just our time together. It's really compelling radio.
And he has such an incredible perspective to the wrestling career that he had. Yes. Like I love that he's not jaded by it. He's like thankful for it all. And, there's not a lot about him. The more I was trying to pull pictures and videos and stuff, is I could find a number of matches against big names, which was cool. Yeah, but I could not find much about him at all, other than an article here or two that referred to him as like a reverse Goldberg with just a monster losing streak.
Yes, he had a long losing streak, but he did battle some of the biggest names. He said he had the Undertaker's first TV match after Undertaker debuted.
I believe it was his second match. His first one, I think, was because I was digging that stuff up too. I found his match, and I think like a week before, which was all taped, I think on the same day, was a guy named, I think, Rock Hunter or something like that.
So that was the first one that Undertaker went against on TV as far as a squash match, and then Al or Sonny was the following week.
Yeah.
And then he shared stories about some of the things that prevented him from ever really getting a push. So he really self-disclosed a lot too.
He really opened up on it, and it was the kind of thing, as I was listening back, going through the editing, that I go, he feels like that's the thing that held him back, and I feel like that he was also right that if he just talked to the right people, he could have harnessed it, because the things that held him back are the very things that a lot of the greats say that they never lost. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That they've always maintained those feelings going out. So if he did harness it, then who knows? But the fact he's so thankful and grateful and doesn't look bad on it.
So respectful. And when he talks about Bruno, he doesn't say Bruno. He says Mr. Sammartino, or he'll say Mr. DiNucci, or Mr. McMahon. And, he was just so respectful and so appreciative of the time he had in the business. And it really is, I highly recommend it. It's really a bonus show if you take a look at it. So when this show airs, next week's show is going to be the Sonny Blaze special. And I would definitely check it out. So, but we have a special guest today, our friend, our executive producer, one of the executive producers for the Patreon account and of this show, Mr. Anthony Pyrus, is joining us. And
hello, gentlemen and Marsh. It's good to see you guys. I got to give a plug real quick. I mean, been a fan since day one. The Sonny Blaze interview I cannot wait for, because he was a John Arezzi original.
Yeah.
Whatever, however far he went in the wrestling world, he's got a place in my heart because he was there from day one. And man, those were the Wild West days of Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
Yeah. And you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
I mean, I can't wait. I cannot wait.
He looks good. He has, he's aged very well. He looks
not as good as me, right?
Oh no, I wouldn't
Thank
say
you.
anyone can age as well as you have. I mean, that's because you are out there every day going to concerts or football games, hockey games, and you saw Springsteen. So
John,
that was like,
I was so disappointed that the monthly Zoom got postponed because literally during the 7:00 hour is when the show started. I would have streamed the boss himself playing.
yeah, I know you would. Yeah, that was just something I couldn't avoid. It was a last minute meeting I had to go to, and that was it. I just couldn't get out. I couldn't move it, and that was that. And
John, you always deliver. You always deliver for your patrons, and it'll be rescheduled soon. I'm sure. All good.
Yeah. I know next week is problematic for a lot of people because it's WrestleMania week. A lot of people are heading out of town, including Marsh. You're going to be out there.
Yeah.
So I am not going to WrestleMania. And I'm not going to Mets opening day. So
no.
Just protesting it all.
I'm not really protesting the Mets, but in WrestleMania, maybe Philadelphia next year. Who knows?
Speaking of the Mets, I noticed that a certain other podcast of yours came back this week.
Ah, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Yes, we had our season 2023 baseball season preview on the Gibby Show with John Gibbons, two-time manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. And
there we go.
Here's the book that is coming out on April the 4th. So yeah, we started the podcast up. Our first full episode will be Monday, which is whatever the date is on next Monday. I think it's the 27th or something. What is it?
27. Yep.
Yeah. So we have our first guest lined up, and it's the current manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, John Schneider. So that should be a lot of fun.
Not the guy that played Bo Duke in the Dukes of Hazzard, I'm sure.
No. This is the current manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. To get Gibby and Schneider together, the current manager, the former manager, it's going to be really good to kind of give a overview of what the baseball season is looking like for the Blue Jays, and I'm going to try to sneak as much stuff of the Mets in as I possibly can.
And if you want to feel old, March 27th, Monday, is the 35th anniversary of WrestleMania 4 when the Macho Man won his first world title. I was there.
In Atlantic City.
Yep, I was there.
You sat next to Trump, I assume.
Yeah, me and my good buddy sat.
Yeah. Who was he with at the time? I think it was Marlon Maples, wasn't it?
No, that was back when he was with the first wife.
Ivana.
Ivana.
Yeah, Ivana, yeah. She's no longer with us, unfortunately, right? She passed away not too long ago.
About a year ago, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, WrestleMania 4, that's a good anniversary. But I'm having fun with the Gibby Show, and we're so excited to announce that Miller Lite is now the title sponsor of the podcast, and we have another big sponsor coming on that has agreed to a deal with us, and we'll be announcing that next week. And so anyway, that's going to be a good season. It's going to be a good 40-week season with the Gibby Show. Each and every Monday, we drop episodes, and we'll be bringing on the biggest names in baseball. So if you're a baseball fan, just look for the Gibby Show. Yeah,
all baseball fans need to be tuning in because I'm a huge baseball fan. As you know, we're going to go to a Mets game later this year, I'm sure.
Yes, we are.
But yeah, this is great. He's great stuff. Gibby is so down to earth. He is just a regular guy. He comes off as a regular guy, even though he's a baseball genius. Talks about baseball in a way that anybody can understand.
Yeah. Yeah, the simple man is what he is, and that's his favorite song from Leonard Skinner, and the same the same music that Jacob deGrom uses when he walks in. But Gibby is that. He's salt of the earth. My former roommate with the Mets, I've known the guy 42 years now. So it's a long friendship. We did some cool things together, and I'm happy to be doing this podcast with him. But anyway, this week we have shows 203 and 204 that took place March 27th, 1993. And we had lots to cover today, don't we?
Yeah, this was, I mentioned it last week even, that I was not looking forward to having to clip these up, knowing what was ahead of me. Yeah. And this felt a lot like there's just so much I had to leave on the table, and not because I wanted to. I just couldn't play 2 full episodes and have us review every second of it. But this is one of those weeks where it's like, definitely, if you're on the Patreon or not on the Patreon, get on it. Both of these shows are crazy. Like, they're just
crazy
really
shows.
good.
Yeah, they were. I was in a crazy mood that day. I remember there was something amiss with me. I don't know what it was.
The beginning was really freewheeling. You were kind of just, and when you did the intro, especially in the morning show, you were kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I actually start with the opening, because the opening already, as soon as I heard it, I was like, John's in a mood. Like, sometimes you can tell he's punchy.
All right. The morning show, which is Pro Wrestling This Week from WNYG. And this is the open, I guess.
WNYG. And now, WNYG Radio presents Pro Wrestling This Week. Now, here's your host, John Arezzi.
Good morning. How you doing? I'm here with one of our favorite friends in the whole world, James from Massapequa, has joined us here. Seaford? I'm sorry, I haven't seen you in so long. I haven't seen James in quite a while. He decided to stop by the studio today to say hello. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the program. We are very, very tired this morning after being out very late last night. Hold the presses here. Now, what is this? I'm looking at a poster in the studio, and can you believe this? This is an old WEVD AM poster. Now, I understand the station is still using this to try to get advertisers here. This is from 1958. Only in America. Yes, I was saying, very, very tired this morning. Was out at a great independent show last night promoted by Universal Wrestling Superstars in Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, at that mecca of wrestling, Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. And was it a lot of fun? It wasn't so much fun for Jake the Snake Roberts, who I had to transport to the hospital after his match with Nails, who was there last night. It seems Nails nailed Jake in the chin and split his chin wide open. It was pretty ugly to look at, James. It was very, very ugly.
Well, he's pretty ugly himself.
Yeah. And beside the fact that once we get to the hospital, they whisk him into the emergency room, and he suffers many, many stitches in his chin. And, of course, while the doctor's stitching Jake up, the nurses, all the attendants, everyone's, oh, Jake the Snake Roberts is here. They're lining up for autographs outside the room where he's lying prone, getting sewed up by the doctor. An interesting night last night at Our Lady of Guadalupe. But we'll be talking about many things here today on the program. Without further ado, we have this guy hanging on from Massachusetts, I believe, and his name is Don Leibel. Donnie, are you there?
John, I'm here, and I'll tell you something. I am having a prelude to the convention. The last few days up here in the Boston area, it's been tremendous. Wrestling shows, wrestling tapes, watching. The weather's 60 degrees here. Snow is melting. This is too much.
Spring is in the air, that's for sure.
Hey, I'm feeling good. You know, Thursday night I went to a card in Westbrook, Maine, which is right near Kennebunkport. All-Star Wrestling, Wendell Weatherby promoted the card. He drew about 400 or 500 people. It's a very small community, but he had 4 names on the show. He had the Convict Nails and Axe in a match, and he had Jake Roberts as a babyface work against the Can-Am champion Jimmy Snuka, who works as a heel. And enjoyed the show very much, and enjoyed being in the presence of Jake Roberts, because this guy, he ought to be doing stand-up, because he was in a very good mood and had everybody laughing in the dressing room. A few times the name John Arezzi came up, but...
and, of course, they spoke very highly of me.
Extremely, very highly. Seriously, he was the life of the place, and a good show. A few interesting notes about it. The only photos that they were selling there were photos of nails, and it was a picture of an electric chair.
Yeah, I got some of those last night.
With his face superimposed in those. I thought that was rather interesting.
It was Don. Did you know he was on the show last night in
Right,
Our Lady Guadalupe?
Coming down, yeah.
And he fought Jake in a match in the main event, and he busted Jake's chin wide open.
Okay.
I had to take Jake to the hospital last night, and about 15, 20 stitches. And it was really Jake didn't seem to care. Obviously he just went about his business. But in the hospital room, this is a sure memory for the future, and the future edition of Pro Wrestling Newsletter is just watching Jake sit there and lie in the hospital getting sewed up by this Mexican doctor. And there's a line of people, all the attendants, the policemen, security, lined up getting his autograph while he's getting sewed up.
Incredible.
And he was joking with everybody. He didn't really care.
Boy, I'm glad they didn't give him a drug test.
John, I want to ask you point blank, was that legit, or was he just like completely drunk out of his mind or altered or whatever?
What do you mean what was legit?
Well, I mean, yeah, he went to the hospital, but was it for an injury, or was
he got busted open?
Okay.
No, that was legit. That was the first time I ever met Jake that night. And he was smoking crack in the car.
I'm sure.
I mean, that's not, it's not an unknown thing. I'm not accusing him of something. It's widely known. This is who he was at the time. I was quite shocked in my car. Didn't expect it.
John, you had to be sitting there in your car driving this man with a busted chin while he's smoking crack in the back of your car.
Going to the hospital with
saying,
police.
What the hell has my life come to?
That's exactly what I felt. And because it was just, and we were in the middle of discussions and bringing him into AAA, and I was getting ready to announce a tour to Southeast Asia. So I was doing business with the guy.
Yeah.
But it was never an easy road with him.
John, it seems like all your business dealings were on a wing and a prayer. You just went for it every single time. Were you having doubts about Jake at this point, or were you just like, hey, I got to get this guy because he's a huge star?
Well, doubts. I've always had doubts, but it was like, the people I was associated with for AAA, Ron Scholar, Conan, we all thought that Jake would be the best heel to go against the Mexican heroes. And he was so great at what he does, and the psychology, the heel, everything about him. But his albatross and his demons were well known. And for me, it was not the most comfortable, and especially as the more I got to know him, the more misery he put me through.
Comfort, John. You're in your car. There's a guy bleeding to death, smoking crack. So I think the comfort level is probably, at low.
You kept the windows down, I hope.
I believe. Well, there was the month of March, so it might have been a little chilly.
Cool.
I just remember, and I remember being in that hospital, and I'm like, why did I get roped into taking him to the freaking hospital? Why did I get roped? And it could have been because we were doing an event at the Press Box Cafe in Brooklyn with George Napolitano setting it up with his friend, and all the boys were going over there for drinks afterwards. And so that might have been it. Or I might have took him just because I needed to start talking some business with him about what we were planning for him, if things were able to be worked out. But it wasn't something that I was really in the moment enjoying.
Yeah. It also was kind of interesting to me to hear you say that he was just so open to doing it. Because at that point, how well did he know you? And he knew you were about to book him on something.
He knew me like the other guys knew me. That was the guy that did this radio show. That's how he knew me.
And we always hear a lot of the stories of like, oh, if this person had an issue, I didn't know about it. Or if this person was drinking, it's nothing I ever saw. No one can say that about Jake. He just
he was out in the open.
Yeah. That's so wild.
Yeah. And then, when we get a chance to talk about his appearance at LMS Comics, that'll be a good one to cover. And we'll probably bring Larry from LMS on to discuss that.
We've talked offline about that. I cannot wait for that episode.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. But a crazy start to the show was probably that I was so tired from being out most of the night. Yeah. And I just went in there and just like my brain was just like no filter. It was just going for it.
And you had the fan in the control room.
James from Seaford.
Yeah.
Yeah. James is the guy that came up with that listen and learn slogan. He was a wild guy. James and Jim from Seaford. I mean, these two guys were like buddies. They were like frickin' frack. They were like, one would finish the other one's sentences. They were these cool, but they were always jittery. They were always like just jittery and never comfortable and never, but they were so cool guys. They used to make me laugh. They were so funny. They were so funny.
It might even have contributed to your mood as well. You know what I mean? You're already in there.
Maybe.
You see these guys. You look forward to it. You just had a rough night. You know what? It's going to be okay. I got these guys here.
John sounds tired, that intro.
Good morning.
Tired. I was definitely tired.
Let's see. Let's keep it moving. I ended up with way more clips than I had anticipated. We usually try to keep it, honestly, around 10. We're like 13, and I still wanted more. Okay. So, well, yeah. But some things that happened in between a couple of clips. Donnie was breaking down the show he went to, and he said that Jimmy Snuka had Ico Pro in his gym bag, and that gave him a laugh. And he goes, "I guess the stars really do use it." And then you said, "I heard Jake feeds it to a snake." Like that. We don't hear about Ico Pro enough, in my mind.
No, we don't.
Jacques Rougeau might be the nicest guy he's ever seen in a dressing room. Donnie said that he was really cool, and that one of the reasons why he left WWF was just because he said he had the money to. He said that he was fortunate and saved his money and just wanted to spend time with his family, and that's all there was to it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that was pretty cool. Let's see. Talking about success of the indie scene, about how good it is, and you guys are all concerned what was going to happen with the WWF investigation, and if that was going to impact the indie scene negatively. Like, I guess that was a big worry.
John, did you know what was about to happen was going to happen?
I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I knew that there was plenty of grand jury investigations, federals. There was a lot of stuff that was going on way after everybody thought everything had quieted down. Mm-hmm. But the government was working on a case, and I knew it was going to happen. As
a kid or 18, 19-year-old guy, I knew about the Ring Boy scandal. I knew about, the steroid thing with Hogan on the Arsenio Hall show, but I wasn't in tune to the federal indictment. I was actually kind of surprised because I just started subscribing to the newsletters around 94. The first issue I got was the acquittal. So I was like, what the hell?
You're like, I missed something here.
And of course, I did not have Pro Wrestling Spotlight in Providence, Rhode Island.
Well, of course, even at that time period, when that trial took place in 94, I wasn't even on the air.
Yeah. And then even here, you were very tight-lipped about anything you did know about it for the preceding episodes where you clearly knew stuff. You're like, yep, there's still investigations. Right. And, when that stuff comes out, ooh-wee, but you weren't going to talk about it.
No.
That's out of fear.
No, how could you? That's not a fear. It's just kind of like, how do you can't, you just hear things. And, I wasn't 100% sure when, if it was all, the momentum was there that this was going to go down in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did think it was interesting. Donnie said he was going to be with Snuka tonight, and he was going to try and call in with Snuka. I don't believe that ends up happening, but
yeah. Good luck with that, Donnie.
Was Snuka hard to rein into?
Brother. He was Snuka was, I booked him on some shows. I had him at my 93 convention. And when IWAS started doing some dates, I actually brought him in with Metal Maniac to a show I promoted in Joplin, Missouri. And that was the famous night where I didn't have him in the main event. I had Tito Santana and Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event. And because Tito Santana, because I needed to put the belt on someone, I put it on Santana to defend it. Yeah, to defend it against Bigelow. And when Jeff Miller, Metal Maniac, told Snooker that they weren't going on last, Snooker got offended. And he told Jeff, let's do everything tonight, brother. Let's go through tables. Because he didn't want them to follow his match. He wanted to steal the show. And that's what they did. And when Metal Maniac Jeff called me, he found me about 4 years ago. He was looking for me for 20 years, wanting to know if I had a copy of that show, which I did. He was always saying that to the last days of Snooker's life, even when he was kind of out of it, he'd always tell Jeff, tell me about St. Louis, brother. Like, just to relive that story. And that meant a lot to him, the fact that they went through tables, and it was kind of cool. But yeah, Snooker was always pleasant to me. He was always respectful. I never had a problem with him. And the times that I did use him, he was there on time and he did his job, and he was pleasant to work with.
That's awesome.
Brother.
You tell everyone you're returning to Farmingdale Lanes because you have your weekly challenge with a couple of kids.
Yeah.
I like how you always minimize these kids who just and we had this interview where you brought in editor and publishers of the Wrestling Title Histories book.
Yeah, Royal Duncan was one of the
Gary
guys.
Will.
Gary Will, yeah. I remember them. I remember the book. The book was really, really good. It was a very comprehensive look at title histories before it got crazy, after titles were put on anybody pretty often. But it was a great book, and Royal Duncan was a pretty established writer. He was an established guy.
Yeah, it really seemed like you had gotten a hold of the book, read it, and really wanted these guys on. I do have the first 3 minutes or so of the interview.
Do you have the opening? Do you have the opening, the way it starts?
Yes, because that cracked me up. But right before that, early in the opening, which we had cut somewhere, was you were talking about how you're going to have them on. You're like, I got this guest coming on. Just listen to this. And then you just hear a big thump because you just throw the book on the counter.
Was this
300 pages? That's not in this clip, but it's worth it if you've got the Patreon just to hear that one bit. But like I said, scrap for time on some of these.
It was a heavy book.
Yes. And you made it very aware. But this is the beginning of the interview with Royal Duncan and Gary Will.
We're going to get on the phone right now and speak to a couple of gentlemen. Hello, guys.
20 minutes, maybe.
Oh, does it really?
Hey, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's all manually done.
Oh, is it really?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you just had a
gentlemen
search that
would
accumulate it, And,
gentlemen.
I can search easily enough.
Hello.
Hello, John.
We've been listening to your conversation on the air here in New York for probably the last 5 minutes. How y'all been?
Good. How are you?
For everyone out there, we are joined by Mr. Royal Duncan and Mr. Gary Will. They are the editors and publishers of this, I can't say nothing else but this fantastic educational book that's come out called Wrestling Title Histories. Just looking at this thing, you can't put it down. It is close to 300 pages of wrestling title histories and title changes from every organization imaginable. Now, I don't know which one of you wants to answer this first, but how did this concept get started?
Gary?
Well, we were both working on it separately. Both Royal and I independently were working on different title history projects, trying to put everything together. And then about a year and a half ago, we ran across each other in a kind of funny way. He sent a letter that got to Alaska that I saw. I wrote a letter to New York that he saw, and then we ended up working together.
Mm-hmm.
But we were both doing it on our own, and Royal's the one who really got everybody together, all the historians and people with records. I was doing it sort of on my own, looking through magazines and programs and stuff. And then we got together and pooled our resources.
Well, it just the matter of the extensive coverage.
Yeah, it's even bigger now. It's about 370 pages now, and probably makes it easier to put down, but it's a lot of stuff. But 900 titles, maybe even more than that.
So it's already been updated.
Yeah, that's right. The second edition just came out last month.
Wow. How long did it take to compile this information?
Well, I want to interject something on the first question, John. The
Sure.
reason I started my search is that my interest as a hobbyist is in collecting autographs, and I wanted to match up my autographs with the different title holders and see who I had and so on and so forth, try to fill in and get complete sets of title holders. And I realized that, yeah, there were certain things that were written about the NWA and the WWF and the AWA, but nowhere could I go and find this information where anybody had compiled title lists. So I thought, well, this seems like something that would be, nice to have in one location. And then as the more you go along, the more involved the project gets, the more input you get. And really, it's not Gary and I. Yes, we've put the finished product together, but it's the 60, 70 other people that are really responsible for the book. But it's our name, but they're the ones that really have been the reason for success of it.
That's right, and they all gave their information completely, freely, and shared everything. We're very willing to help us out, and
it was a very nice situation, really. Yep.
Well, once you look at it, then you see not only the major federations, NWA, WCW, WWF, AWA, but you have territories. All the territories are represented here. It is just unbelievable, and I just can't say enough about it.
Well, that was memorable.
Well, it was a great book, and matter of fact, Marsh, I found it. I just found that book, not in my possession, but I just found it on eBay.
Yeah,
as I did a quick search for it, so I'm going to text you a photo that you could use.
Absolutely. I was going to look it up.
What this thing looked like, and it was kind of a bound book, but it's going for it's on eBay right now. If anyone wants to buy it, it's $49.95. That first bid for it. One bid. There's already a bid on it right now, actually. But it's like 17 pages, very bound. It kind of looked like one of those old Pro Wrestling Torch annuals, the way it was bound, if you guys remember those. So it's pretty comprehensive. It's there's a lot in there. So but I thought it was fascinating, and I always loved back then looking at who was the America's champion in Los Angeles in 1970, 71, 72. Those were those memories for me that I kind of cherished. And of course, I knew all of the WWF champions. They weren't like so many of them that you like today. I would never be able to even know who the hell the champion was 4 years ago. So I found that when I got that book, I was so pleased with it. It was such a great guide.
I just thought it was so fascinating just because this is prior to the internet. And so the idea that these two dudes did that amount of research and especially went through the territories, how much do we still see people kind of saying, did this person actually hold this at that point or not? Like, this might be a resource for them to go and look. What did we know 30 years ago, which was much closer to that time,
Yeah. Yeah, it was very, very cool, and lots of information in it. And the fact, like you said, there was no internet. There was no way to do a search on anything. And it was painstaking work for these guys.
John, as a host, again, you're paying for your time. We've already talked about how this was you had to spend 30 seconds saying, guys, we're on the air. How much did that drive you nuts?
There was nothing you could do.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could do. What can you do? You'd get annoyed, and obviously every minute is precious, but these are just things that happen, and we had so many of these types of moments over the history of the show.
Oh, of course. But at this point, you've been doing this now for, 4 years. But yet at the same time, now you're more sophisticated. Now you've been to Manhattan. Now and you know what the financial risks are of doing this. I just thought it would drive you nuts.
I felt like that's why you did callers at the end, in case things were malfunctioning so much up top, then you just cut a caller or two out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every show was different, and every show flowed differently. It all depends on who the guest was and what the callers were and how the phones were lighting up and what was topical for that week and what type of mood I was in that particular day, because my moods were all over the place sometimes.
That's true. Sometimes you would take callers and they would not turn on the radio, and you would just cut them off and move on to the next. And sometimes you would just sit there and talk to the same person forever.
Yeah, it all depends on how annoying the voice was on the other end.
I love hearing this now, 30 years later, how, God, the guy's voice just ticked me off.
Or if it was a kid and I knew what, was an Ultimate Warrior question. My patience was sometimes tolerable, and sometimes I was not in the mood for shit, and I just cut people off when I was very quick with the button.
Yeah.
And if I sensed that they were going to say something that could be inappropriate or a curse or whatever, I'd cut them off, even if they had no intention of doing that. It was just kind of the way I had a quick trigger.
That actually comes up at the end of the next episode, which I didn't pull the clip from, but there's a guy who asks a question to Cactus, and then kind of like tries to kind of run a promo on Cactus for a second and goes, "Oh, kind of speechless, bang bang," and then you just cut him. And then Cactus is all like, "Oh man, like what are you talking about?" Like, he's like, "Oh, I already got rid of him." He's like, "Well, John, take the call." Like, he was all like, "You didn't have to hang up on him." But yeah, you were a little quick on the draw.
I was even quicker when there was a guest on the phone or in the studio. I was even quicker.
You had to be. You had to be.
Yeah. Well, because then at that point the caller's not just embarrassing himself, but they're embarrassing you, the host of your own show, and yeah, I could see that. Do you remember Duke the Pitbull Snyder?
Vaguely, I remember the name. Yeah,
he reviewed the Our Lady of Guadalupe show, and you asked him how long he'd been wrestling, and he told you 17 years, 6 years straight. He's been back for about 5 years, and then afterwards you're like, he's been wrestling that long? You learn something new every day, I guess. I hadn't even heard of him.
I heard about him on the indie scene, and he worked for Tommy D a lot. And he did the local New York market, knew the name, and I don't even know I had him on. I don't even know. He probably asked me the night before, "Can I come on?"
I felt like that's what it was. I felt like he had talked to you while he met you there, and I'll review the thing. Okay, sure, because it was pretty not super notable. That's why I didn't pull a clip from it, but I was curious if there was perhaps any kind of relationship there. And if you barely remember him, you probably met him at the show.
Hey, listen, I was very accommodating. If I could let Sonny Blaze in the studio and interview Jack the Giant Stalker for a half an hour,
yeah,
yeah, I had a high tolerance level.
You did. For someone who had to pay for every minute, you definitely gave it away from time to time.
Yeah, I did.
The bus trip got canceled because it was supposed to leave at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and apparently that upset a lot of people. But then you talked about having gone to the Madison Square Garden show, and you took a sharp turn here on a concept that we've been that I've been personally spearheading as my favorite issue you have, is your issue with Doink. So...
yeah, I made a complete turn.
This is the turn.
I tell you, I want to talk about one thing. I thoroughly enjoyed. I went to Madison Square Garden for the very first time in a long time this past Sunday, and the most over wrestler to me, the person I enjoyed most of all, and you fans out there, especially those of you who realize and the taste that I have when watching wrestling, I'd rather see a Terry Funk or a Cactus Jack participate. But my favorite wrestler right now is Doink the Clown. I love Doink the Clown. He is the most over heel in the WWF right now, and the guy, from the theme music to the maniacal ways in the ring. I spoke to one of his close friends, Diamond Dallas Page, this week, and Diamond Dallas Page was telling me that Doink, who is Matt Bourne, Big Josh in WCW, is really like that sometimes. He gets a little bit of that clown persona happening, and but he was just great last Sunday. The match he had, actually 2 matches with Randy Savage, it was just phenomenal. I just enjoyed it thoroughly. But that's something I never thought I would say. Now I understand that WWF is going from clowns. They're bringing in Brian, the Night Stalker that they've signed, and they're giving him a vampire gimmick, which will debut, I think, after the WrestleMania, the following TV tapings. We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Doink.
It's your guy.
He's the most over guy in wrestling ever.
You know what? I mean, he developed that character incredibly, and once he left, and then I think it was Phil Apollo.
Yep.
Might have came in, and it was not the same. It was not.
Once Matt Bourne got over, he was gone by the end of the summer, and the whole thing just went straight to hell. I mean, Apollo was a good enough wrestler, but there was something about the way Matt Bourne played that character that worked perfectly.
Yeah, it was really like it would have been a great horror flick.
Yeah,
with
I don't think Apollo ever quite got it the way.
No. I mean, Matt was just an incredible performer. When Paul Lee brought him in to ECW and squashed him in the beginning, and then it was just kind of this. Paul Lee knew how to work with the guy too. Paul Lee knew how to promote him and to develop storyline. And I had the opportunity to work with him one time. I brought him to Caracas, Venezuela, when I promoted that show down there. And he was just incredible to work with and true professional. And I was happy to get to know him. And I was happy to get to work with him that one shot in Caracas. And I was a fan. And I had to admit it on the show. I was a fan. He
got over. He got over.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. I mean, Sam Roberts even did a whole episode of his show once just about the Matt Bourne specific Doink, and talks about a lot of the details that you see in there that you never saw once Matt Bourne was no longer playing Doink. So,
right.
I mean, yeah, it was crazy cool. Do you think maybe it took you just seeing, I think that was part of the whole story of Doink, right? That he wanted to win you over to make you think he was awful, and then so he could be mischievous. Like, you can't be evil until you're good.
I looked at it in the beginning like it was like, what are they doing now? They're bringing a clown into the ring. I mean, I just thought it was ridiculous when you had all of these cartoon type characters being integrated into WWF. And I just felt, all right, here is now a clown, but seeing the development of the character and then turn, when he got to be the evil clown, and then as the character progressed, he was just phenomenal at it. And he had his demons, though. I mean, that was another big issue.
Which ultimately did him in.
Absolutely.
Well, right after that, you get Jake the Snake on the phone. It's not that long of an interview, so I believe I just have the whole interview there because this is a long time coming. For 2 weeks, you've been saying you're trying to get Jake. We'll probably have Jake on, well, now you got him.
Well, let's join him and let's check him out right now. Joining us on the phone right now, direct from the mansion of Mr. Tommy D in Staten Island, we're referring to Mr. Jake Roberts. Jake, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning to you.
Is it? I haven't been outside yet. Is it a nice day, or is there a foot of snow?
Actually, it's beautiful out.
Oh, great.
Would you like to go bowling with us? We're going bowling in a few minutes.
No, I don't pick up those things, I just handle the snakes and do my thing and hang out on the side.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on the air. Of course, tonight you'll be in Staten Island. Do you know the name of the venue tonight?
Oh, yeah, it's Tech High School in New Dorp, Staten Island. It's going to be nice.
And that's on Clausen Avenue.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to have a chance at wrestling Rick Martel again. And, from a long time ago, there was bad blood. And just to get the opportunity to get my hands on him again, make him miserable, it's great. And I also understand that the Bushwhackers are there.
Yes.
That should be something. I get a big kick out of watching those guys. They're very entertaining, and just to watch them and just to have fun. I mean, that's my thing too. A new demolition. A lot of things are happening around this area.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of.
I mean, you think about it. Well, this guy's going to do this, or this guy's going to do that, and it's not the WWF. It's not the WCW. It's these places that are out here on the outskirts that are bringing up the new talent and also bringing up a lot of excitement.
Well, Jake, you've certainly been one of the true superstars of pro wrestling, and you've worked most recently for WCW, big organization. You've spent your years with the WWF as one of their top drawing cards. Are you enjoying yourself more since you don't have that hectic, you have a hectic schedule, but now you're kind of calling the shots yourself?
Well, not only am I calling the shots about where I go and when I go, but what I do. It's not necessarily wrestling. I'm starting to do a little acting in California and having a little fun out there, and doing a car show next week in Albany and having a little fun up there. I mean, I can diversify, spread yourself out, do a little bit of this and a little bit of that instead of just that steady grind of 7 days a week on the road, 30 days a month, 25, 26 days a month anyway. And now if I get feeling rough or I don't feel good or if I get busted up, I can take my time and heal. Whereas before, Vince McMahon and WCW, they just ran you into the ground like a couple of dogs, and pretty soon life wasn't much fun anymore.
Yeah.
That's where I was at. I was to the point that I was angry and unhappy and didn't know why, because I was still wrestling, and I've always loved wrestling. And being able to wrestle with Universal Wrestling superstars has given me the opportunity to wrestle when I want to and not when I want to. And I like being my own boss.
Well, I wouldn't. I would have to ask you this question. Last night, you had a rough match with Nails, and things got a little rough, and you got busted open. And I was explaining
17 stitches on the chin. That's busted open. Yeah.
And I was explaining to the listeners that while you were lying in the hospital and while the doctor was sewing you up, there was like a line of people you were signing autographs for.
Being sewed up for me it's not like the first time. I mean, a lot of people get cut or something. It's like, oh my God, they can't stand the smell. They can't stand this. They can't stand, just the doctor being there. But to me, it's just, it's another day of paradise. I mean, part of the game. It's going to happen. The people, they were fine there last night, and they got us in there, and they got us right out. I mean, today, you're lucky if you go into emergency room at midnight on a Friday night and get out there in 45 minutes. You got to be kidding. I mean, I was lucky I wasn't there till 6 a.m. this morning with the line they had there, but they were very good to us, and they got us in and out, and I didn't mind. I guess it was fun.
Yeah, it was a situation where you were in and out, and the fans, I guess all the people in the hospital really enjoyed it. I just want to thank the guys from the 62nd Precinct last night.
They were great.
Tony Napoleone, I believe it's almost like Napolitano, but maybe he's a relative of George Napolitano's.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not, right? But I appreciate you coming on for the short bit of time. We certainly would like to do an extensive interview with you to make the listeners aware of what's going on in the life of Jake the Snake Roberts. Certainly big things ahead for you in many different aspects of your career in wrestling and now breaking into the film industry. And hopefully we can do an in-depth interview with you. And
I'd like to do that. I tell you what, give me a week or so, because I tell you what's going to happen. In the next few weeks, this world is going to be turned up on its edge. I'm going to be a big part of that.
Yes.
And it won't be the WWF, and it will not be the WCW. But
I know.
We'll see the Snake again, so be careful where you walk.
And next weekend we'll tell you a little bit more about that. And Jake, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you tonight.
All right.
Take care. Okay, Jake Roberts, and he was hinting around to something which I have kept under my hat as well. But next week, all hell is going to break loose, and we're going to tell you about what's going to be happening next week. You will be very surprised, and as a wrestling fan, it's something that's very, very good for the fans.
Yep.
Okay, seriously, how lucid was he?
On this call?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you talked to him either before or after, and he seemed tired. Mm-hmm. And no offense, we all know he was smoking crack before a few hours earlier.
This was in the morning, though. I mean,
yeah.
he was okay. I mean, he was. I would have to say he was totally straight on this. And he was probably just waking up.
Having never smoked crack, I have no idea how long it takes to recover. So yeah.
I wouldn't know either, because I've never gone down that road. Never gone down that road. But yeah, I mean, we were alluding to that, and there was a good conversation, and we were knee deep into getting this AAA thing situated, and that was that the paydays that he got with AAA and Ron Scholar, he made quite a bit of money with the AAA. Good paydays, very good paydays.
Did he come back in a week or two?
No. I think he comes back
all about it.
In the summer. He probably has another appearance or two in the summer. I think even when I did the remotes from Southeast Asia, he might have been there. And Yeah, it was never, it was never a dull moment with Jake, ever. And he was alluding to film work and some of that too, that he was going to try to get into some movies. And if you read Matt Memories,
which I did,
there's I was the director one night of a production for Jake. Fantastic. Marsh, I don't even know if you know.
Don't forget about the phone call you got shortly thereafter.
A year later, yeah. Yeah, you have to read it in the book. I'm not going to talk about that here. It's not one of my proudest moments in San Diego.
You can go down to, was it Wrestling Con 80s? You can go down there and pick up a copy of Matt Memories.
Yeah, you could read all about what happened in San Diego after a AAA show. And then the phone call I got from Cheryl Roberts a year later with Jake, where I just hung up on both of them.
Brother, don't sell me out, brother.
I said, you two are both fucking nuts, and I hung up on them. Yeah, and he's back with Cheryl now, from what I understand. He just reunited with his ex-wife.
Oh, good for them.
Yes.
I don't get it, but hey, good for them.
You hope for the best.
Yes, you do.
A caller calls in about a rumor he heard from the Slammer, and then you basically just talk shit on the Slammer for about a minute. But there's a couple more calls that happen in here. There's one in here, though, that I pulled because of what we know actually happens. A caller calling about WrestleMania. I'm going to play it right now.
Let's go to Belmore and Colin. Colin from Belmore, you're next.
Yeah, hi. I have a question about Roddy Piper.
Yes.
Do you know where he is right now?
He's in Portland, Oregon.
Is he going to wrestle in WWF ever again?
I think he's still affiliated with the WWF, and whether or not he goes back to wrestle remains to be seen. I would say you haven't heard the last of Roddy Piper.
Yeah, and also, what do you think is going to happen in the main event with Yokozuna and Hitman Bret Hart?
Well, a lot of people are saying that Yokozuna is going to win the title, but my official predictions won't be till next week, but I don't see Bret Hart losing to Yokozuna.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, bye.
Bye. 661-1440. I really can't see that, and if it happens, it's certainly going to surprise me. I just can't see Yokozuna winning that title or be deserving of being given that strap. I just can't see it, especially with Bret Hart doing a good job as champion. I'm trying to figure out a scenario where they would give the title back to Hogan, but I don't even think that's going to happen. I do think that Hogan and Beefcake will emerge victorious next week, but our official predictions for WrestleMania will take place next week.
I'll start. John, did you have any inside information? Because that was right on your prediction. Your prognostication was right on the money.
I had no idea. That was just
my God.
It was just kind of a hunch that they want to get that title back, and I was about as shocked as everybody else when it happened the way it did.
Oh my God! One of the most polarizing endings to a WrestleMania ever.
Oh, I was totally upset with it.
So was I. Jesus Christ!
And I was like, once I seen him come out there, I was like, oh,
the minute Hogan slid into the ring to argue, my heart sank. So I'm like, oh God, they're not going to do this, are they?
And then
Fuji, then Fuji grabs the mic, and I'm like, please stop, please stop.
And Bret is like, go ahead, do it,
please. And that had to eat Bret Hart alive.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
I believe in his book he talks a lot about how that did not fit well with him.
He was doing well. Business wise, it wasn't great, but they needed to build him up further. Taking the belt off Hart, John, I will agree with you 100%, was the worst decision they made. Yokozuna did a good job once he won the title from Hogan in June. But, man, I thought Hart could have been such a great long-term champion.
Yeah. How long did Hogan last as champion at that point?
Hogan won that match took place April 4th, 1993. He lost the belt in June at the King of the Ring pay-per-view.
Yeah. Back to Yokozuna?
Yeah, back to Yokozuna.
And he departed after that to WCW, didn't he? Go.
He took about a year off. He entered WCW in the summer of '94. But I will say
he was at the McMahon trial. I mean, he testified.
Yeah, he testified
at the McMahon trial
with his do-rag.
Yeah, I was there. It's crazy.
You were so on the money about it too, because you're like, I'm trying to figure out a scenario where they can put it back on Hogan, but I just can't think of anything that would make any sense. Neither did they. They also could not come up with something that would make sense. So I heard that and I was like, yeah. And that's also still to this day one of my favorite fights that Conrad and Bruce ever had on their podcast.
Oh, Jesus Christ, that was great, wasn't it?
Drag out. Yeah. Oh my God.
It was an attraction. But you already sold the tickets, right? Yeah, but it was an attraction.
Yeah, but then it was like, but we needed it for the UK tour. But he lost it before the tour. So it was
Jim Cornette calls Bruce the Artful Dodger, and I can't argue with him.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Yeah, feels that way for sure sometimes. Let's see, you have one more caller on this one. Where Dom from Oyster Bay asked, where's all the women's wrestlers? He goes, no one has any. And you kind of talk about how WWF and WCW both seem to not like employing women. And then you talk about Medusa jumping onto Michael Hayes. And that's why they pulled her, because they didn't want her showing up the guys. I believe she's told the story. I think she broke her foot because Michael Hayes just stepped to the side and said, no. Which, hearing all that, I was like, damn. Because I knew you were talking to her a lot at that point. You're getting ready to have her on.
Yeah, because she comes on actually in a couple of weeks, the April 10th Pro Wrestling Spotlight show. Yeah, her first appearance.
Yeah. Well, that does bring us to 204, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.
The main event.
The main event, and there's still a lot more about Jake too. Like, you bring up the Jake autograph thing a lot, which I was wondering if you were overselling it. Because he was smoking crack in your car?
I was wondering the exact same thing. I thought the exact same thing.
It was unforgettable for me because I didn't expect it, and it was like, it was just kind of maybe something I just wanted to keep dwelling on for some reason.
John, was that your attempt to
shit out of me?
Was that your attempt to babyface him?
That's what I think. I think you were trying to babyface him. That you knew he was.
Yeah. Problematic.
Yeah, problematic. And so you're trying to say, look, he's such a good dude. And
what a great guy.
He signed all these autographs. Yeah, what a great guy. Maybe you're trying to convince yourself. Maybe face him to you.
I was like, probably no, because I'm getting ready to do all this business with the guy, and and I'm like, please, maybe I was just kind of delusional and hoping that that this guy is going to straighten up, and I'm going to be taking him overseas, and then, of course, he's going to go to Mexico and cause all of this havoc with Conan. And but I was kind of like, maybe I talk myself into like he's okay.
Yeah. Look, he smoked a little crack. Who doesn't? Come on,
who doesn't smoke crack in 1993?
When he performed in the AAA, when he performed, it was the most incredible heat you'd ever want to see. And even his work in IWAS, he was a pro, even though he was fucked up a lot of the time.
Most of the time.
He got over with the fans, and he knew his psychology, and he knew how to work.
Yeah.
He knew how to work.
I did keep the opening to 204 as well, because I enjoyed the opening of this one too.
All right.
You explain why Jake is not coming on tonight.
Okay.
John Arezzi.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the program, the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, right here on New York's Greater 1050 WEVD. And we are back live here in the studio with a host of people here joining us tonight for a very special program. We were going to try to get Mr. Jake Roberts here in the studio with us tonight, but that is not happening because apparently he's lost his snake in the promoter's house of the card he's wrestling at tonight. And the snake is now running rampant with the promoter's 3 cats, so there's a little bit of a chase going on in the house, and Jake is now searching for the cobra in the house. But we have a great show lined up for you. Don Liable is up in Boston, Massachusetts, covering a live wrestling event. He will not join us tonight, but we have with us on the line direct from down south, a man that we're all familiar with, a man that we all love, a man that we all respect, and someone who is going to be up here in New York City on April the 14th, and that is when WCW makes his debut at the Paramount, formerly the Felt Forum, right by Madison Square Garden Complex, and I'm referring to Cactus Jack. Cactus, are you there?
Yeah, John, I'm right here with you.
Well, I have a little surprise for you here in the studio as well. Joining us live here in the studio
It's not ski, is it?
No, it is not ski. It is not ski. However, it is your New York press agent, and I'd like to introduce to everybody out there from the Howard Stern Show, Fred the Elephant Boy.
How you doing, Jack?
Hello, Fred.
Yeah. How you doing?
Hey, Fred.
Yeah.
Fred, you tell everybody out there that you and I were just hanging out a few nights ago?
Yes, we was.
You didn't tell me that, Fred.
Well, I'm telling you now.
Well, where were you hanging out?
Oh, no. I was in Atlanta.
Don't bang your hand on the table there.
I was in Atlanta, and I was the guest of Cactus Jack, and he saw me in the town after the TV tapings.
Wow.
Yeah, we went out to a place, big place.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know that I picked up the tab for both Fred and his brother. And we walked in, immediately Arn Anderson and Ric Flair were there. I tried to usher them away from the Nature Boy as quick as possible.
Yes, I can understand.
While Fred may add to my persona, quite a bit, I'm not sure that he fits in with the Nature Boys security crew and beautiful women.
Yeah, I was almost spit up.
That's gold. That is classic. Love it. Wow.
It's amazing how in 1993, back when Howard was the underground big man, Foley was the only wrestler he had in his show.
Yeah, he talks about
and that was because of Fred.
Fred,
he was a member of the Whack Pack, and Fred was big fan of the show.
Yeah,
he used to go on all the bus trips with his brother, Phil. And we recently lost Fred. I mean, Fred passed away.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. But personal hygiene was not something that was utilized.
Was he in studio? Was he in studio?
Yeah, he was sitting right next to me.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It was just the smells that would come, especially on the bus trip. He and his brother used to sit in the front row. And everyone would kind of distance himself because it was quite.
But the stories live on, man. That's why we're here.
Well, yeah, it was just like he had a tendency to crap his pants all the time, and that's what
God,
he did.
He was a wrestling fan trailblazer. He set the standard that many wrestling fan would follow for years to come.
Yeah.
My wife is about 3.5 feet away from me. And she just went, "Oh God, crapped his pants, Jesus Christ!"
A lot, all the time.
Yeah, but did he smoke crack on the bus? No,
he did not. No. I love Fred. Fred was so great, and Fred was instrumental not only in bringing Mick, Cactus Jack on Howard, but he was the guy that facilitated my only appearance on the Howard Stern Show with Medusa and Malaya Osaka, and he was able to get that done for us.
And Donnie, who was shooed away right away.
Yeah. Donnie was shooed away. He wasn't allowed. I wasn't I wasn't expecting much there anyway. I can't wait for that time period to be covered because I have that original broadcast. I have that tape with Stern and Malaya and Medusa on there.
I have found the Howard Stern appearance that Cactus makes right after this.
You got to bonus that for Patreon.
Yeah, we got to try to work something out on that because it's probably really good.
Yeah. I did track that down. I've been talking about it for weeks, and so I felt bad, so I pulled one of your paint ads. This one with Cactus involved.
Yeah, just probably
Earl
classic stuff. Yeah,
bringing his gifts. But yeah, it's Cactus with the Holbro paints ad.
Well, Fred is here, and of course, there's going to be a special announcement tonight as far as an appearance on the Howard Stern Show, which we'll be telling the fans about out there in just a little bit. Also joining us in the studio tonight, we have Earl from Holbro Paints joining us, who brought down some wonderful gifts for us. And also, Greg from Home Run Baseball Cards in Ridgewood. It was going to bring Nikolai Volkoff down there next weekend. And Nikolai will be joining us for a couple of seconds also to plug that appearance next week. And one of our best fans, Edwin from Ridgewood, is also sitting in the control room. And Bruce Jacobs, our dapper producer. So we have a full house. We'll be taking your calls and comments for yours truly and Cactus Jack here at the program. Lots to talk about. So what we're going to do is tell you about our first sponsor. Cactus, are you into the home painting? Did you do your own painting in your home down there?
Well, I dabble a little bit, you know. I like to paint airplanes. The glue is quite
enticing.
no, actually, I haven't painted much lately, but I need to, and it might help me to know what the right types of materials are.
Well, do you use when you do paint, do you use those great Benjamin Moore products?
Oh, of course.
And Hobro Paints from Brooklyn, one of our sponsors here at the program. They are responsible, you know, Cactus, for bringing us back to WEVD.
I understand that. It's good. Thanks, guys.
And Early Earl is sitting right here, and he's brought us some great prizes. Not prizes, actually just gifts. And you could receive one of these gifts if you go down to Hobro Paints of Brooklyn, 1851 Flatbush Avenue. That number is 718-338-7800. You know, spring is right around the corner. And it's time to get off the mat and get a toehold on the Benjamin Moore Regal paint products, such as the Regal Wall Satin, which is a flat finish, the Regal Aqua Glow, a semi-gloss, the Regal Aqua Velvet, which is an eggshell. Cactus, you ever hear of an eggshell finish for painting?
No.
And also Regal Aqua Pearl, which is a pearl finish. And if you purchase any 4 gallons of the Benjamin Moore Regal paints, mention John Arezzi's name and also Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and you will receive absolutely free right now an Old Timers Yankees baseball cap, a beautiful cap. I got it right here, while supplies last. So don't wrestle around with inferior paints. Come on down to the paint store with punch. Hobro Paints of Brooklyn, 1851 Flatbush Avenue. Give them a call, 718-338-7800. Don't get yourself in a sleeper hole. Purchase any 4 gallons of Benjamin Moore Regal paints and get those tag teams of those products. Mention John Arezzi and receive the free Yankee baseball cap valued at $20 while supplies last.
John?
Well, yes.
I've heard quite a bit about a lot of different paint stores, but that certainly is the most dramatic.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Oh, it sends shivers down my spine.
I just broke out in a cold sweat just thinking about the eggshell finish. And mention Early Earl when you go down there also, Early. You're always down there. You get there about 4:30 in the morning, don't you?
Yeah, about 5. Give me a break.
Okay. We will return with more of the program right after this short timeout.
Doesn't matter what we were giving away. People weren't showing up.
Is that why he was in studio so often? Early Earl is in the studio every week. Is it because he's making sure that you're doing the thing?
I think he just dug it, man.
Oh.
He liked coming. He enjoyed it. He was on the radio. I mean, and he wasn't the owner of Holbrook. He just worked there.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And they're giving away Yankee caps. One week they're giving away paint roll. I mean, they're giving away. I had posters. It was all to drive traffic in there, and no one ever showed up. And I'd have to revise these spots almost every week to just kind of spice them up and just try to entice people. But it's a paint store on a pro wrestling show.
Yeah.
Mickey B did his best. He got me involved with Holbro, and I could just sense that their time was almost up.
Sean, how far in advance do they pay?
I think it was a monthly. Every month I get a check. Yeah. Yeah.
And at this point, are you thinking just this isn't going to work?
Well, I was certainly hoping it was going to work. And I don't know if it was just kind of an expense for them, but even though Mickey had a deep friendship with them and they advertised, they thought it was a great idea. I mean, no one's going to be writing a check for, I think it was, they were paying me $800 a month at that time. And the show was $1,000, so it didn't cover the whole nut, but it covered the vast majority of it. And you know, when you lose a sponsor like that, and I don't know what week he's going off the air. I mean, I have no idea how long it lasted, but it certainly doesn't last much past the end of the spring or summer.
Because paint stores and wrestling just don't seem to match as far as I'm thinking.
No, that's not a good fit.
Not a lot of homeowners.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
John,
But here's the other thing with Benjamin Moore. Here's the other thing, which was like it wasn't a total loss for them because this was what you would call co-op advertising. So they would get a kickback from Benjamin Moore for mentioning their product specifically on the show.
Interesting.
John, can I ask you a question? Now, you've talked, by this point, this is probably Cactus's 25th or 30th appearance on the show.
Easy.
He seemed tired here. He didn't seem like usually Cactus would go on, Mick would go on, and he would give you this great, Cactus Jack type promo. He seems to be content just talk about, hey, my baby's upstairs. I'm here.
Well, it's also midnight. It's also midnight where he is too. I mean, and most of his classic appearances were on WGBB and NYG.
True, but he was obsessed with his character, and you got to remember the time cap.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Don Leibel. This was the moment where he was getting he was just about to get his first main event push in the Vader angle. He just seemed tired.
Were they in the program at this point? Were they working with each other at this point?
They were about to.
They were just starting some promos. They were starting the thing. They were about to have their first match, which would lead to the injury match.
Yeah.
So it was coming. He had to know it was coming.
And when did the ear come off?
Oh, the ear comes off a year later in April or May of '94 in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, because he mentions it later. Someone asked who's his toughest opponent, and he talks about Vader, and he said that he thinks he could do a lot with Vader. That he would like to have a long series of matches with him and such. Which also, to me, just kind of spoke to the difference of then versus now. Like the amount of times people go, "Oh, these two have wrestled twice. I've seen it." And then back then it was all like, "Oh, imagine if these guys did a 12-match series." You know what I mean? Like they just wanted to do it
because it was brutal. It would, and Mick would want him to lay him in and really not hold back. And
God, that Halloween Havoc '93 match was just off the friggin' charts.
Yeah.
I did like immediately though from the original thing where you said, "Oh, I got somebody in the thing," and then Cactus goes, "It's not Ski, is it?" Ski becomes very prominent in this episode.
He does.
Cactus, we're mentioning him over and over again, and at some point goes, "My fear is that Ski's going to think that I'm joking."
Ski was just a big, goofy, good-hearted guy with some, challenges.
He was a fan. He made it all worthwhile.
He loved the show.
Mm-hmm.
He loved this show, and he loved the fact that he got to meet wrestlers, and he loved the fact that even though Cactus put him down and screamed every time Ski would call in, Screech actually, it was endearing to Ski because he was recognized by some big names.
Yeah. You did mention Nikolai Volkoff was going to be calling in, and he does. I didn't clip it because it's a relatively short and benign interview where you're really promoting an event.
I really wasn't happy that he was coming on.
Really?
Yeah, because it was the promoter who was in the studio who was doing an appearance with him. And I love Nikolai. Nikolai's great. Yeah. But I felt that, like, because I had Cactus, it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a Terry Funk and Conan or a Terry Funk and Cactus. It was just and if I was going to bring a guy like Nikolai on, I wanted to spend time with him to talk about his career.
Because of Nikolai, though, I will admit this, people my age know the Russian national anthem. Yeah.
But he didn't sing it here. He sang it at the convention.
He did. He sang it at the convention, yeah.
But yeah, because you even asked Cactus, "Do you know Nikolai?" And he's like, "Kind of." He was really like, "Hey." And then they just kind of said hi to each other and moved on.
Yeah, you could hear it all. Patreon.com/John Arezzi. Yeah. All the complete shows are there.
Yeah.
John, I heard that it's expensive to get in the door. Is it really expensive?
Yeah, so entire $5.
That's the part where you say, no, it's only $5. Yes, $5 gets
No,
you.
I'm being sarcastic.
It's totally worth it.
Let's see.
They're gonna need to join. Now's the time.
These episodes. There was a lot. Like I'm even just kind of scrolling through some of these notes. I just have so many on this ones. But I did pull this one. Cactus talks about. You asked him the question, what's given you the biggest thrill so far in WCW? I really enjoyed his answer, and I felt like that it kind of carries over into another character he starts playing years later.
Your time in WCW, you've certainly opened some eyes. You've done a lot of spectacular things. In your time since entering WCW, what has given you the biggest thrill in that company?
The biggest thrill that I've received since being in WCW?
Yeah.
Let me think. There's been a lot of them, you know. I'd say maybe there's a few matches that stand aside as type of matches where during it or after it, you're just kind of on a cloud, you know. And I would say that the biggest cloud I've ever been on actually was a match where I lost. It was my Beach Blast match with Sting, Falls Count Anywhere match, because to me, it wasn't widely reported, but I was, overcoming some pretty mysterious health problems. It turns out that I had a high-pitched squeal that I used to use in a lot of my matches, and I liked it. And the fans seemed to like it, but somehow it burnt a hole in my throat. And there was a time there where during every match I had, when I breathed in air, the air was getting, I don't know medically exactly what was happening, but it would cause me to gag and gasp after about 20 seconds in the ring. So my matches started going downhill, and people were wondering what happened to Cactus Jack. And the first one wondering about Cactus Jack was myself, because I was looking at myself and I lost my confidence. My matches were suffering. I didn't feel like I was pulling my weight in the company. And so when I had this match with Sting in the Falls Count Anywhere match, the pressure was really on, and it turned out that my medical problems went away about 3 days before that match. So to me, Beach Blast was a way of saying that, hey, Cactus Jack's here, and he's still a major force in this company, and he can, on any given night, beat anybody. That was the night where I drove home. It was about a 400-mile drive, and I just never felt better. I mean, I never felt more pain, but I was never so alive.
Yeah. You certainly put a smile on Fred's face over here.
Yeah, I mean,
that screech becomes a huge part of the Mankind character.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was the noise he made when he would talk to Ski. It really was.
Yeah.
As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you see this Pro Wrestling Spotlight we're wearing. Well, you're wearing the basic black. And this was a specially designed New York Mets edition of the Pro Wrestling Spotlight cap.
Yeah, that one's really cool.
I'll tell you, I'm normally a 9 out of 10 on the sex appeal scale. When I wear this hat, I'm 10 out of 10.
There you go, man. Mm-hmm. Did you give one to Bruce when you saw Springsteen recently? Because you were sitting right next to you. You were sitting right in back of him.
Yep. Guess what? You know what? I bought tickets about 2 weeks ago. Off topic. I bought tickets to Springsteen 2 weeks ago for the suite for Gillette Stadium. And today he announced a second show at Gillette Stadium. As a Patriots season ticket holder, I got a pre-sale. I bought a ticket. I'm going again.
You got to. If you're a big, that's like when I know McCartney is in the area. When Paul McCartney, I have to go.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few that you just cannot.
So I've got 4 more Springsteen shows to go on this tour.
There you go. After we talk about that health issue, though, we do get a phone call that is a surprise to Cactus that you couldn't have been happier to facilitate.
Yeah. I wonder who it is.
We do have a special guest caller that did want to say hello to you real fast, if that's okay, and we'll punch him up now. Caller, are you there?
Surprise, Cactus Jack. Surprise. John, there's one problem. Is this who I think it is?
Yeah.
All right, you punched up Ski, but I'd rather you punch him out. You understand? Ski, I'm 1,000 miles away, and still you can't get out of my life.
I'm going to see you at the Paramount.
Yeah, okay. He's 2 great...
What?
His 2 great obsessions in life, professional wrestling and hardcore pornography. So I can't help feeling that every time he watches Cactus Jack drop an elbow, as glorious it may be, he may be wishing that I wasn't quite so close, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Gee, you're a sick man. You're a cancer on society. Other than that, I wish you the best.
Oh, is there any chance you can make John Arezzi's convention or a public appearance?
When is his convention?
I don't even know yet.
He'll tell you. He'll tell you.
For sure.
All right, listen, Ski, thanks for the call, all right?
Yeah, thanks, Cactus.
Gee, is there any chance that you might be able to jump out in front of a speeding subway?
No, I don't take the subway. No. I'll look for you at the Paramount.
Yeah.
Okay,
Take
bye.
care, Ski.
I'll be hiding behind the garbage can.
Yeah. All right.
All right, good night now.
Good night.
Okay, couldn't...
Do you think one of these days he's going to suddenly realize that I'm not kidding?
I don't know about that. But he was... I saw him today. We had a little bowling tournament, Cactus, down in Farmingdale, and Fred and his brother were there, and Ski, and a few others, and Fred really knows how to bowl. He did a very good job. It was... he was... What do you call him? Fast Freddy, Bruce?
Oh, Fast Freddy.
But...
Oh man, what beloved characters!
I just went time. That's what I mean. I'm listening to this thing, and like every minute, I'm like, okay, that's a clip. And so I finish it, and go to the next. Like, well, that's a clip, and I was like, well, I can't just play the whole thing.
but it's so great to hear it back at this, and those were beloved guys, man. They were just the hardcore fans of the show, and they were entertaining. They were annoying. They were annoying sometimes.
Yeah. But, John, let me ask you a question about Mick, because you knew him pretty well at the time.
Yeah.
At this exact moment, Bill Watts was gone. And Mick, in his book, referenced how much he enjoyed working for Watts because, Watts liked him. Watts featured him. Do you think he was starting to get a little disenchanted with what was going on now? Because Bischoff was in. Bischoff didn't see him as a star.
Right. And
did you ever talk to him?
Wasn't Ole back or was Ole gone again? Was
Ole, this is 93. This is March of 93. Ole, I think, is gone. I think
he's gone. Because once Watts left, probably Ole, if he was still there, he was gone too.
No, I apologize. I think Ole left around July. Sorry. I think
he was
Ole's
still there at this time. Yeah, well, that is a big deterrent to Mick, and even Flair didn't like Mick.
That's true. Yeah, that's been on.
So
record
he
a few
wasn't
times.
being like, he wasn't being positioned, and that's what really, to the detriment of the business. I mean, when Mick and Vader had their run, and it was just kind of like they were trying to calm it down, tone it down. They thought it was too violent. Yeah, he was never really happy there after that time period.
John, I know I have 4 appearances left in 2023. I gotta be on when Halloween Havoc 93 comes on because I'm gonna rave about that match. Unless you're,
why don't you just send me the dates you want to be on, man?
All right, fine.
I know. We have, and Halloween Havoc. I would have to say though, I mean, there could be an issue with that one because I think I'm off the air. I think I go off the air, I believe, in September.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Or October, or right after November. I go off the air in November. It's right after the convention, and I lose EVD again, and then I just get fed up, with all the stuff that I'd gone through, and I just left. I was like, you know what, I can't do this no more.
John, you are the ultimate optimist. You didn't give up, did you?
No, I came back, and I come back in '94 in September for the last final 5 months of the show, and then when it finally ended in the middle of January of '95, I did one show, and then it was over, and then I never even did a final show to say goodbye. I do a final show to say goodbye in November on both NYG and EVD. I announced that I'm stepping away.
It's God, John, you were 30 years behind the times because God, if you had come around today, a New York station, you'd be a media star.
You'd been busted open.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Busted open is huge, man.
Yep.
That's what I mean. I don't see why you
Well, my
Except for the
timing
timing.
was off when I left too, because then things
Well.
turn around for the wrestling business, and it was just it was bad timing. But hey, listen, we have what we have, right? We have the
Oh
memories.
God, and I appreciate, and all the patrons of Patreon appreciate it too. And if you're not on, God Almighty, $5 gets you in the freaking door.
There you go. It's my ambassador.
I did like hearing from Ski though, because you talked about him last week. To hear him be brought up immediately on this one's like, I guess someone is. I hope it's not Ski. Like, to know that he was kind of prominent in what you guys were up to in that moment. You're on everyone's mind, and then also hearing that Fred and his brother and Ski all went down to Farmingdale Lanes. Like, did a lot of the bus trip people show up for the Farmingdale?
You have your hardcores, and I think with Fred and his brother Phil and Ski, I mean, when they walked in, that's when a lot of people might have left the bowling alley.
John, if I had been living in Long Island or Manhattan at that point in time, I'd be one of those guys who would have driven my car to the highest point to get the signal.
Yeah, it was fun. People would do anything to be able to pick the show up, and that's why I love DVD so much, because so many people can hear it. And it was just kind of when you look back, and I just feel blessed that I saved all of these shows.
You did it. You did. You lived it, man.
Yeah, and it's great to relive it. It is great. Sorry, Marsh.
I like listening to the back and forth and just hearing in the background Fred just sitting there laughing.
Yes,
so
he's
great.
Incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
Just in case you forgot he was there he is laughing again, and it's like he's so great. Speaking of, I do have a clip here where you specifically talk about Cactus being on Howard Stern, and he talks about that whole connection as well.
Cool.
Cactus, April 12th, a couple days before the Paramount. Now, your press agent here, Fred.
Through reading and dinner, I managed to get Cactus Jack on the Howard Stern show on Monday, April 12th.
Yeah. Now, Cactus, you've met Howard before, and you're the only wrestler he allows on the program.
Yeah, that's right. No, and don't think that WCW hasn't gotten wind of that. I've been billed for the past 3 weeks as Howard Stern's favorite wrestler. Now, if that's true, and I guess it is, it's probably by process of elimination. Howard's not the biggest wrestling fan in the world, but he seems to like me because he likes Fred. And so the Stern show, anytime you get on a show that reaches that many people, it can be a great boost to your career, as long as he takes a liking. Because I mean, it's his show.
Yeah.
If I could say what I want on your show, because people all know Cactus Jack. But once you're there, you're kind of playing in his ball field. He's got the ball. You got to kind of play by his rules. You understand?
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, it doesn't become such a great career move. So when you hear, so when you tune in, you'll be listening to a very homogenized Cactus Jack.
But just the fact that you've been on the show before, and if he didn't like you, he wouldn't have brought you back. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I went to this is the first time I did Howard's show when I was still an independent wrestler. I think I just signed with WCW, but I had a few more independent dates to do. I was in Philadelphia, and the people in this crowd were chanting Stern, Stern, Stern. There's a lot of people listening to it.
And we're looking forward to that. Now, that is Monday, April the 12th, so that's 2 days before the Paramount show. And WCW certainly should tip their hat to you guys as well, Fred the Elephant Boy and Howard Stern and Cactus for going on that big show. That could sell a lot of tickets for that event.
Well, yeah, I hope so. I like to think that I'm something of a draw there. They put me in this spot. I don't have any problem with Rick Rude. I like ravishing Rick Rude. I always have. I always got along, good tag team partner from time to time. So to go out there and for me to say that I'm gonna hurt Rick Rude, I'm going to do this, it's probably not true. I only if you add too much enthusiasm all the time, it becomes false enthusiasm. So basically, I'm sitting home in my underwear and a Sting shirt, and I'm watching country music television. I've got no problems. I've got a baby upstairs sleeping, and I feel pretty good. So for me to go out here and then rant and rave, it's just not in the cards right now.
Mm-mm.
But it'll be back, John.
Well, things sound like they're going good for
well,
you.
No, but you understand, if things go too good, there's no more Cactus Jack. You understand?
Yeah.
Like I said, I need that bit of hatred to feed on. So when it wasn't there with the fans, then you pick your opponent to really hate.
Always a philosopher.
Yeah, I liked that breakdown when he starts, because he knows his character. Like Anthony was just saying, he lived in that character so heavily that he knows that a lot of this character is built on things not going right and not going well, and fighting through that. And when your life is kind of on an up, what is
he's about to have his break? He's about to have his breakthrough year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just, it was always fascinating to hang out with him. And it was always fascinating to spend time, especially when he lived around the corner from where I lived in West Babylon, and going there to watch matches and Japan matches. And when he'd come back from a trip and then drive to ECW with him later on. And it just, and the Joe Goodhart shows, it was really a magical time for me because, getting to know him and how focused he was and how much of a vision he had of himself and what he wanted to do and what he wanted to accomplish, and the great family man that he was, and with his wife and the kids, and just kind to everybody to this day, really.
Yeah. Did he ever break down like psychology with you on the road?
We would talk. I'd listen, and I don't have too much of a recollection of like deep conversations into the psychology of the Cactus Jack character, although he might have certainly discussed that with me.
Yeah, it's just neat.
Oh yeah,
because you also always hear about that, especially from the old timers. Talk about how much they learned from riding with other old timers. Well, they were young at the time, right? That's how a lot of training happened on the road, right, in the cars. And so, knowing that you guys ran back and forth, I just wondered.
Yeah. And Paul Lee would do that with me more than Cactus would. I mean,
oh wow.
Paul Lee would call me and go over stuff. I remember when he was trying to do this character for Savoldi called the Wrestling School Dropout, that it was a guy who just didn't graduate from wrestling school, and he get beat up every week after week after week after week. And finally he gets a win, and it kind of turns him. And that's what he did with Mikey Whipwreck.
Yes, I was just say that.
Yep.
And it's really, when we hear the Sonny Blaze show next week.
Yeah.
Because Sonny was the guy that trained Mikey, or John is his first name. So that first, he goes over that first time Mikey, and because Paulie was using Sonny's ring, and it's a fascinating story about how Mikey Whipwreck got his push.
Yeah, that was really cool.
But Paulie used to do that. He used to call out. Yeah, and then when I was planning the trip to Southeast Asia, I brought Paulie aboard because I wanted him to be the booker, and then Jake wanted to be the booker. But it was really fascinating to hear Paulie's vision and ideas, especially when right at the cusp of what was going to be going on with ECW later on. I used to love hearing from Paul, and Paul to just go over ideas like that.
Yeah. It was obviously conversation, so you must have at some point given tweaks that he may have liked or not liked, and just been like, "Oh, what if you did this?"
Yeah, I like this idea, or I like that. It was really cool, and Paul was just filled with energy and always thinking, like Cactus in a different way, always thinking.
Yeah, I also enjoy the visual of Cactus in a Sting shirt and his underwear, calling you on the phone.
I might not sleep tonight.
Yeah. There is a clip I pulled here because it is relevant. This is going off right after Kerry Von Erich's passing, and Cactus talks about some of the ways that some of that had been represented in some of the newsletters that he I thought he had a really diplomatic way of talking about it. I don't know, and sometimes I hear something from 30 years ago and I go, I wish the people who do that stuff now would listen to then. You know what I mean? So
I tell you, Cactus, great to have you on with us. And before we take some calls, this is a much happier circumstance. The first time that you appeared on the program since our return at EVD was that weekend of the unfortunate death of Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah, can I say something about the deaths? If I something's been bothering me a little bit. Some of the journalists, who write for different newsletters, I can't for the life of me see the benefit of getting humor out of someone's death. You know, somebody like Kerry Von Erich, that it was pretty fair game or open game for insults and cheap jokes on his death. I think the people making these jokes never met Kerry, because had they met him, they would have liked him. Like everyone that I know who did meet him did like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a real. I swear to you, a couple times I felt sick to my stomach upon reading that, because what it did, it made me for a short time feel ashamed to be in the wrestling business. It's been the greatest business in the world for me, but I wonder, if Cactus Jack were to take an unfortunate fall or something, should I be paralyzed or crippled? Are there going to be an influx of Cactus Jack jokes? I hope not, but the way the journalists seem to treat people when they're on the downslide, it makes me wonder. So, my advice to them is please show a little class, a little respect for dead people, and try to show the same respect that you like to show, for yourself.
Do you have any particular person in mind that you want to direct it to, or just generally?
No, I mean, there's been more than one. If you're talking about Mark Madden, I've met Mark and I like him, but I don't see why he's got to be so ugly, and I don't really see it at all.
Mm-hmm. And Mark Madden, if you're not familiar out there, listeners, he is a columnist for the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter. And, that was a tragic situation. And I read another column in another newsletter earlier this week, and they also were talking about Kerry's death. And I met Kerry several times, and, last time I saw him, he was almost incoherent. Mm-hmm. But he went out of his way to be nice to everybody.
He went out of his way to be nice to everybody. I mean, I can't think of any wrestler who ever met Kerry who didn't like him. And for someone who never met him to sit there and take shots at the family and at Kerry's memory really it's a lack of class.
And they're having a big memorial show next week for his children, and Sid Vicious will be there. The reuniting of two of the original Freebirds, and also Jim Hellwig, the man formerly known as Ultimate Warrior, will be in attendance as well. And we'll have a report being phoned into us next Saturday night about that benefit for Kerry.
Yeah, good words from Cactus there. I mean, he spoke his mind.
Yeah, and came to his defense in a super classy way.
He wasn't afraid to do it and support a guy that was, and he was right. He wasn't afraid to support a guy that was considered a joke at the time of his death. Because I remember reading, I remember reading about how Kerry was completely incoherent the last 2-3 months of his life because of drugs,
mm-hmm.
and Mick humanized him. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, not only that, but you have a outstanding warrant. I mean, you're fearful of being able, you might go to jail. I mean, there was so much going on. It was just a tragic story.
Yeah, all of it. And then for people to,
I hope that movie does the family justice.
Yeah.
I hope so too. It's going to be probably controversial as well.
I think so. Yeah. But yeah, I like, because even then, you didn't ask. He just said, "Hey, can I talk on something that's kind of been weighing on me?" Like, he wanted to make sure that he got the voice out there, because he also knew that your show was something that all those people were being exposed to one way or the other. Whether they regularly listened or didn't, people were talking about what was being talked about on your show.
Or sending tapes to everyone. Everyone was exchanging tapes.
John, I'll ask you, you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were there that last night he was in Philadelphia under a mask, right?
Yeah, I was there. That was a John Clark convention weekend.
How was he that entire day? Was he just gone, or did
he wasn't in his right mind?
Yeah.
Sucks.
Mm-hmm. You do get into the callers. We have 2 clips, 3 callers. But before we get to the clips, Josh from the Bronx calls and asks after Rick Rude's match if he's going to go for the title. Talking about Cactus, is going to go for the title. The notable part about this that I liked is he's talked about how he hasn't held a title since the light heavyweight belt, and you can hear Fred in the background giggle at the fact that Cactus had the light heavyweight. But he gives a nice explanation there. This was an interesting thing too that you agreed with. Adam from White Plains has mentions in a call that it took too long to put Andre into the Hall of Fame. You said you think Vince only did it because the NWA announced that they were going to have a Hall of Fame. I just thought that was an interesting concept because in my mind, Andre passed away in January, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
this is 3 months later. They created a Hall of Fame literally
For him.
the sake of Andre, because it was like, you know what? We don't have a Hall of Fame to put him in. Let's make one. And he was the first inductee. And so that wasn't good enough still for some fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, should have been sooner. Well, maybe, but they didn't have one sooner. Like, it was just kind of a weird takeaway from it.
It's still really not a Hall of Fame. It's just
it's not like a building.
Which over the course of time, now you're talking 30 years. I mean, there should be a brick and mortar Hall of Fame that the WWF.
In fairness, how much tourism would a brick and mortar Hall of Fame draw?
Depends on what city it's located in.
Good point.
I can tell you right now, I don't care what city it is. I would have flown out to it.
Oh God, the three of us, yes, absolutely, because we're
that's true. We're the nerds.
We're nuts.
Maybe someday, right?
Especially this year, they're putting in Andy Kaufman. You kidding me? Like,
that's gonna be if it's done the right way. That's going to be a highlight of the Hall of Fame.
I hear that Bob Zamuda might be inducting.
Well, that would be tremendous.
Tony Clifton.
Yeah. What an enigma! And you're the foremost, as far as anybody that I know. You're like the foremost Andy Kaufman. I'm not going to use. Well, Mark is not really a word. You're a fan. You admire Andy, and you know probably a lot about his whole history. I would say, Marsh.
I've been introduced to people as a Andy Kaufman expert. Like that's how they introduced me. And
what is your feeling on this then? What is your feeling on Hall of Fame? What you think? It's justified, obviously.
It's super justified because I don't think that WrestleMania would have gone the direction it went if Vince hadn't seen the success of Andy to begin with. I think watching the success of Andy in Memphis made a lasting impact on Vince. I mean, we even know that Vince told Lawler at one point that was his that was the only thing that he's ever regretted business-wise was not being the person to say, come here. You know what I mean? They turned him away.
That was absolute freaking magic.
Yeah. Or maybe jealousy, I think was maybe the word. It's the one thing he's jealous of, Jerry Lawler's career. You guys took Kaufman and we turned him away, and that was a mistake. I think, I don't know why it took this long. I don't know why. I feel like it's pretty awesome because it's Hollywood. Yes. And that was his gimmick. I'm from Hollywood. I'm smarter than all of you because I'm from Hollywood. Like,
right.
It's poetic.
Let me ask you a question about Andy. I mean, obviously Zamuda was he his manager? Was he his agent? Was he his best friend?
Long-time best friend, co-writer.
And Zamuda was in the Blassie thing too, right? The Breakfast with Blassie. He was there. Zamuda pulled the straw out of his nose or something. Wasn't that?
Yeah, right next to him. They planted him in the seat next to him.
I want to see that. And he pulls this long straw out of his nose. And Blassie's like, ah.
Yeah.
And what about Tony Clifton? Was Zamuda playing Clifton? Was Andy playing Clifton?
It depends on which show.
Okay, but they both played Clifton.
Depends on where Kaufman was at that moment.
And not a lot of people know this. At Carnegie Hall, you had two battling Tony Cliftons.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was actually his brother, Michael. It wasn't even Bob. Because they were using Bob for something else. Yeah.
What a genius, man.
Not a lot of people know that. So depending on the show, the concept, the overall location of it, those are the three people I know that played it. And then today, Nick Hausman, he oftentimes is utilized by Bill Apter to do Tony Clifton and stuff too. So,
is he really Nick Hausman?
He does a really good Tony Clifton. Yeah, he's got the whole get up and everything.
Hausman's good.
He's good. Yeah. So, I don't know who's going to put him in. I know that his brother Michael is so hard to track down and get a hold of because he's completely off the wire.
But really, you don't think it's Lawler because of Lawler's recent health issues with the stroke and all of that? I mean,
I think that if I'm thinking like a wrestling promoter, then I'm using Lawler. If I'm thinking like an Andy Kaufman fan, I don't know that I would use Lawler necessarily.
Honest to God, Marsh, like me, you're a Kaufman fan. I'm not convinced that Kaufman is not going to be there to accept the award on his own.
Yeah. There's always that possibility, right?
I wish.
Yeah.
What a tremendous loss years ago. What a guy that's so beloved and talked about. And
yep, to this day.
Was so misunderstood even in the beginning. I mean, playing Mighty Mouse and all the things that he did in the very beginning. And I'm just like I always bring up, I'm happy to say that he went to my college. I mean, he went to Graham Junior College, and
my parents let me stay up and watch the David Letterman show.
Yeah.
Oh, really? That was amazing. Oh. I thought it was a shoot, man. When I first saw that in 82,
so did I.
I thought it was a shoot. I was like, this is a freaking shoot. There's no way that this is not a shoot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those guys they're just geniuses.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that I got to do that was like, it meant a lot to me, was actually being able to meet Bill Apter to begin with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because of the connection to Andy and all that. I got this poster signed by Lawler, Jimmy Hart, Bill Apter, and Jim Ross, actually. But, and it's this big drawing of Andy going to Memphis. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. So if they had a Hall of Fame, yeah, I would definitely be there. And depending on, like John said, depending on the city, would garner whether or not, like if they put it in Connecticut, probably not a lot of traffic. If they put it in New York, probably a ton of traffic.
Although they had that WWF New York restaurant that failed.
It failed, but it didn't not have traffic. Just
no, it was pretty well attended. I mean, I used to go to that. Well, I liked it, but it couldn't sustain itself with Manhattan and the rents, and it just was a money loser.
Put it in Orlando. Orlando would be a great spot.
Orlando is the place for it.
I said that when they went to Peacock. NBC Universal owns Universal Studios. Make a WWE park with a wing that's a Hall of Fame. Boom, I'd go.
Easy.
I want a WWE park.
You need a theme park, WWE theme park.
You can stay at the SmackDown Hotel. You know what I mean?
Watch. In a year from now, it'll all be in Saudi Arabia.
Marsh, where is the SmackDown Hotel located? Come on.
It's on the avenue of what are the crossroads again?
Jabroni Boulevard and Know Your Roll Drive.
Know Your Roll Drive. All the name tags would just say it doesn't matter. All right, that's a tangent. But I just thought it was interesting. A fan was like, hey, we want him in the Hall of Fame sooner than it existed. But does NWA have a physical? I know they're way different now. Did they ever have a physical, even small building?
No. Nope.
Yeah. And also, a warehouse museum style license building is way different than a restaurant. Just so you know, like a restaurant can fail a lot quicker than a gallery, especially in New York. But that does bring us to the next clip. It's two callers back to back, Brian from Long Beach and James from Seaford, because I enjoyed them back to back, and it's not that long, so it works.
Let's check it out.
Thanks for your call. Brian from Long Beach, you're next.
Going.
How you doing?
Cactus.
Yeah.
I want to know what your relationship with Abdullah the Butcher is.
Uh-oh.
What is it?
Abdullah the Butcher, what's your relationship with him?
Oh, man, it's too difficult to explain in just a phone call. I mean, we're talking about a spiritual mentor, a soulmate, a big brother, father figure, all wrapped into one friendly package. Talking about him, not me.
Oh. And Abby, of course, working everywhere, and that was one hell of an alliance between you and him. That was...
Yeah, I would very strongly bet that alliance is going to be come into play somewhere around the bend.
Yeah.
If I had my say, I would. But Abdullah's doing his own thing. He's been successful. He's always been an independent type of person. And when the time is right for him to come back into WCW, I strongly wish that it'll be in some way with me.
Yeah, we certainly hope so also, because Abdullah is a great performer in the wrestling business. We're going to go to another friend of yours, Cactus. I believe this is the same guy. James from Seaford.
Hello, John?
Yeah.
What's up, Cactus?
Hey, James.
How are you, buddy?
How have you been?
Good. How's the family?
Oh, very good.
Good. I see you're a big star now, pal. It's about time.
What are you saying? I wasn't a big star.
Oh, you're always a star.
But now I have to point out, 7.5 years of doing this, I'm on my first non-comic book cover.
of a magazine. So I'm pretty proud of it, and it's not a bad-looking photo to boot.
That is the current edition of the WCW magazine, and Cactus does grace the cover of that, and it is a very good shot of Cactus, very becoming.
I'll tell you what, you guys out there, let's form a little deal here. You go out there and buy the magazine so that the sales circulation will increase, and I can point that out come contract time.
There you go.
Cactus, I'll steal 100 of them for you.
Well, I need you to pay for 100, James.
Pay for it? Well, I'll ski pay for it then.
All right, listen, James, thanks for your call.
Thanks a lot, John. I'll be in touch.
Okay,
Go
we'll
on,
see.
Cactus.
We'll
See you
see.
later,
We'll see
Bye-bye.
April 14th at the Paramount.
James from Seaford, who was in the studio that morning with me.
Just that morning.
Same guy. And then Brian, of course, Brian from Long Beach, Brian Last, as a youngster back then. Yeah, I thought he was the one that called in with the comment on Hacksaw, but that was not Brian Last.
No, that's actually the following call that I have that clip too, because actually that clip and that caller starts out pretty funny, and then it kind of goes an abrupt turn. So
yeah, let's. You want to check that one out?
Yeah, we can check that out.
Oh, that's a great call until the last question.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's.
And I found the cover, that magazine, WCW magazine. I found it, so I'm going to
very
put it in
nice. Awesome for YouTube viewers. I mean, you're. Let me just before we play that last clip, you're doing an incredible job on this YouTube channel, man.
I'm
really
trying to give it its own look. You know, I do think you have the most identifiably visually different podcast than all the other wrestling podcasts.
No, without a doubt, and the effects that you use and the photos you integrate, and even some videos that you've been able to integrate, and it's just really very visually pleasing. If you follow the show, you listen to the podcast, it really a whole new dimension of it is if you watch it on YouTube, and that's youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Subscribe to the channel, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm even trying to add, like, it's all done. All the drawings are mine. I do them. Like, I keep.
Yeah, we had a little extra work for you this week, didn't we?
Yeah, I just redesigned all the thumbnails.
Yeah,
let's just keep that between us.
Well, you'll see the difference when you go to the.
Well, I had to revise that. You know, when you put up the new drawing of me, I my hairline was not. I wasn't comfortable with my hairline, so I had to add a little bit more hair on it.
Fixed it.
But it kind of looks like me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice little you in the studio with what I like about it is it gives it that then and now feel. You know, this does feel like this is you now listening back and recording your review. But there's the videos that I'm able to find, even the clips for the transitions. Like it's a friend of mine playing cassette tape. Like we're just doing it, and we're just putting it together on our own.
It's fun. A lot of fun.
So this is the last clip we have. The call, Tom from Brooklyn.
And Cactus, are you still there, or did we put you to sleep?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. You know, I may be the one and only Cactus Jack. That's only if you haven't looked at the Italian Stallions PWF, where I believe he's got at least one Cactus Jack imitator.
Oh, really?
Cactus Jim.
Cactus Jim, is that that true?
Yeah, Cactus Jim, and he goes boom, boom. It's not a joke. I wish it were, but it's not. It's no joke.
Funny. But there's only one. There's only one. Fred, did you have anything to say?
Cactus, when you come to New York, it will be my treat on you.
Oh, treat me for dinner?
White Castles?
Yeah, why?
Well, Fred, in that case, I'm not going to eat for about 3 days before I get there.
Oh, my goodness.
Let's get back to the phones and go to Tom from Brooklyn. Tom, you're next.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good.
Hey, Cactus.
Hello, Tom.
How you hanging?
Good. A little to the left.
All right, John, listen. John.
Yo.
Were you at the event yesterday at the Lady Guadalupe?
Yes, certainly was.
All right, I heard, first I thought that Jake had been bitten by a snake.
No.
Because I saw, like, when he was in the ring and he was tapping it, and I saw him strike out his arm, and he just hit it away.
Yeah, well, they didn't bite him. He got clipped by nails, and that opened up the chin.
Yeah, because I was at the parking lot when they were taking him out, and Jake kind of, like, shook his head, and he was all red, and all of it, and, you know, they were just taking him out.
No, he was bleeding.
He was bleeding, oh.
And you know what was the funny thing? When we got to the hospital, now, they got him right into the emergency room. A doctor starts sewing him up, which took about 20 or 30 minutes. And while Jake is lying on the bed, getting sewn up, there was a line of ambulance attendants, policemen, nurses getting his autograph.
Oh my God!
So he was in there quite a while signing autographs, and he was very cordial to everybody, even though he was getting 20 stitches in his face.
All right, John, listen, there's one more question I got for you. I heard from my friend, he came over here today, and he said that Hacksaw Jim Duggan had, and he said this, he said Hacksaw Jim Duggan had AIDS.
No, I don't know about that. You had a good conversation with us, and you got to ask somebody a stupid question like that. So that's why we just cut you off. So there.
Yeah, good conversation, and then he ruins it with that idiotic comment at the end.
I mean, I think in his defense, his friend told him that, and he was like, "There's no
yeah,
way
he was
I'm
probably
gonna
just
follow John."
he was probably wanting. Yeah, that's it. See, there you go. My hair trigger.
Yeah,
cut him off. But that's what happened. You defending this young man from 30 years ago, Marsh, I give you a lot of credit because you were probably right. He was just trying to verify what his friend told him that day.
Yeah, and I mean,
nobody's
it was stupid,
perfect,
it was kids. But also, you were always dealing with that shit from Vince's callers. They would call in and just, man, I mean, it's definitely died down, but there was a while there where every week you'd get a call. Hey, am I on the air? Yeah. You fat fuck.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The call was going great until the last question.
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
But
what a good, entertaining show this was.
Yeah, and the last thing I wanted to bring up on it was that it was a cool insight by Cactus. Right after that, he mentions, because you talked about Jake in the hospital being super friendly, signing autographs, and Cactus says emergency rooms seem to bring on a feeling of inner peace. He goes, for real, it does. And he goes, so he might have just been at peace and happy. He goes, I was like,
coming from a guy who spent more than enough time in emergency rooms.
Yeah, there's a certain comfort all of a sudden they get where the rest of us are panicked because we're in there. He's all like, oh, good. I made it.
I made it here alive. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And someone asked what they're doing with Doink, and you go, oh, that's my favorite wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He won you over, John. He won you over.
He did.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Oh, and one more ski joke. You tell
okay.
Cactus that early Earl told you during an ad break that he will paint or ski whatever color he wants him to paint him free of charge.
What a great episode. A lot of really good stuff on this one, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, this was cool. This was a lot. This was hard to chop up.
Yeah. Well, once again, if you want to hear all of it, uncut, the original shows, there's really only one place to go now, and that is patreon.com/John.
John, may I?
You have a Patreon. How much could that even cost?
Yeah, here we go. $5.
No, John, may I?
Go ahead.
Okay, listen, I'm a wrestling guy. I am a wrestling guy. I think of myself as a wrestling guru, not at the level of John Arezzi, but I am an executive producer. Every quarter, I get a plethora of old vintage wrestling magazines.
Yeah, the next ones are going out this week.
I get access to, if I'm not mistaken, John, I get access to your pictures without any watermark.
Yep.
And I get all the stuff early, so I can listen to the old stuff. Back when you were on, back in 1989, I can listen to the old podcasts that were going on. Guys, for $5 gets you in the frickin' door. Stop. Don't take my word for it. Actually, yes, do take my word for it. Go at a higher tier. Go and get some of this classic stuff. It is freaking worth it. I'm a cheap guy. I don't like to spend money at all. And yet I give some to John every month, and it's well freaking worth it.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, the $5 gets you all of the audio archives and
all of it.
And so, at least all the old shows, the archives, and it depends on your, what you want to get into. If you want deeper involvement, and like executive producers get to come on the show 6 times a year, and producer level, I mean, you get to come on 4 times a year, and in the executive producer and producer levels, you get those quarterly packages of old vintage magazines as well. So yeah, it's not a telethon or anything here, but we have a very consistent number of fans who are there. They don't go away. You may lose 1 a month and gain 2, and lose 2 and gain 1. So we're really right around, we're under 100 patrons still. It's still under 100. And, the patron account is used to pay for the production costs for the show. I mean, that's what it's used for. It's not to profit, really. It's to cover the costs of what we do.
It's to cover the expensive price tag that Marsh charges you each and every single week.
He's worth every penny.
John, I cannot wait to be back with you next month when we do the abomination that was the WCW show at the Paramount Theater.
Exactly, and we look forward to that, Anthony. I really appreciate you coming on with us today. It's always a pleasure to see you, and keep following Springsteen. Do your thing. Enjoy your life. You're a good dude. I'm so happy to have you part of this, man. You're a really cool guy, man.
You're a good man, John. Marsh, you're okay.
I'm always excited when he says we're going to have Anthony on because it makes it easier for me. Okay, I don't have to think too many questions.
No, you are a pro wrestling historian, man. Pro wrestling spotlight historian as well, and we thank you and
love you both. Love you both truly.
Right, take care. You have a great night. Good to see you. All right, Anthony Pyrus, and as a Patreon, I want to, that was a great plug, obviously, and I do have to make a quick announcement in regard to. I know that when I left Arcadian Vanguard, that there was a website, pwspod.com, that had all of the podcasts that I did with Brian. Brian has taken those down now. And there's nothing Arcadian Vanguard, Pro Wrestling Spotlight, John Arezzi related now on YouTube. So really the only place to now hear the incredible early archives of the show is patreon.com/John Arezzi. So
until we get around to catching back up and starting over again.
Yeah, we're going to do it. I mean, that's going to happen. I mean, that's kind of the decision has been made. And like I said, we have this run until November, and then we go off the air for 8 months, but we won't go off the air here, obviously. We'll just continue and pick up in 1994 when we return till January of 95, and then we're going to recycle and start it all over again. And we're going to have fun with it. So,
but with a new look and the new feel. And I mean,
new look,
when you reviewed those other ones, you didn't bring anyone on. And look, we're going to do that. Like, I'm excited about what that's going to look like.
And then we're going to have the George from Lindenhurst calls and all of the characters that really made those early years very, very special that maybe people have not heard before, but we'll give it a new spin. And as they say, fresh coat of paint.
Benjamin Moore paint.
Yeah, courtesy of Holborough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Marsh, your work this week is not done yet. You have to now edit and before you head out to California. But the last 2 days with the Sunny Blaze special, that'll air a week after this hits. But the show is an entertaining one, and I appreciate everything that you do. And as I always do, and I want you to have a safe trip to California. Enjoy yourself. And do your thing out there, man.
It's going to be good if this drops on schedule like it should. And that means tomorrow being Friday and the day after Saturday, I'll be at WrestleCon sitting with Medusa at her table. So if you want to come over and tell us that you're a listener of Pro Wrestling Spotlight, we can send a selfie down John Arezzi's way and make him jealous.
Please.
You can come to WrestleCon.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. It'll come. This year just wasn't happening, and couldn't do it. But anyway, she's got a great book coming out. She'll be on the show in April herself, and we have some really cool stuff ahead. So why don't you let everybody know where to get a hold of you, and then we'll wrap this puppy up today.
You can find me at Twitter at RefMarsh, and on Instagram at MarshRef, and on Venmo at RefMarsh.
There you go. Send him a tip.
It's my tip jar.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm at Matt Memories on Venmo too. So,
yeah, there you go.
And me a tip too. We're asking for money. Isn't that fucking crazy? Anyway, if you want to reach me, all the social media, YouTube, all of that, just linktree.com/John Arezzi, linktree.com/John Arezzi. And you could find me on all those social media outlets. But once again, youtube.com/Pro Wrestling Spotlight. Please give that a a good subscribe to it. There's plenty of content up there for you all as well. So go to that YouTube channel and really you'll see a lot of great stuff up there. That's going to about wrap up this edition of the show. I want to thank our guests tonight, Anthony Pyrus, who is an executive producer in our Patreon, and the other executive producer is Mr. Joe Holloway, and we want to thank all of the patrons for your support, helping with the production cost of this show. Next week, the Sunny Blaze special. You're going to love it. You are going to love it. Until next week, when we relive more history with Sunny Blaze, this is John Arezzi for the Pro Wrestling Spotlight.